Greetings, I'm Denise. I want to share a story about my mother-in-law's actions and how I responded. So, when will you receive that inheritance, Denise? I heard it's a whopping $50 million. Imagine the amazing life we could have with that money. It's just taking forever to process. Ever since I married Joe, his mother, Mary, has been constantly asking about my inheritance. I made the mistake of sharing details with her about my plans, thinking nothing of it. Initially, she seemed friendly, but her persistent questioning started to bother me. Despite Joe and his father, Michael, telling Mary to stop pestering me, she continued. They tried to make her understand that the inheritance was not their concern, and that we were already leading a good life. However, Mary insisted that the money could elevate our lifestyle significantly, suggesting we move out of the inherited old house into a mansion. I pointed out the uncertainty of actually receiving the inheritance and even hinted that I might have lied about it. This led to laughter from everyone, except for Mary, who gave me a disapproving look. From that day onward, she turned into the worst mother-in-law imaginable. She transformed into someone entirely different, rude, mean, and insulting. Her behavior towards me underwent a sudden change. She couldn't tolerate my presence anymore. Aware of her greediness, I suspected that my words might have offended or angered her. Little did I anticipate the extreme actions she was about to take. This woman went into a frenzy when she learned I was just a middle-class girl without a substantial inheritance. About 2 months later, Mary did something beyond my imagination. On a day when Michael and Joe were away for a fishing trip, I was in my room taking a break from working on my laptop. Mary, wearing a disgusted expression, approached me as I went to the kitchen. In a dreadful tone, she insisted I come to her room urgently, emphasizing its importance. Confused, I inquired about the matter, but she brushed off my questions, urging me to follow her. Unsure of why Mary was summoning me to her room, thoughts of a post-nuptial agreement surfaced in my mind. Wanting to end the suspense quickly, I followed her upstairs. Upon entering her room, she locked the door behind me, holding the keys. Bewildered, I asked her about her actions, and she explained her motive. Mary claimed she was locking me in her room until I signed some papers. Stunned, I questioned the purpose of these documents. She revealed it was a post-nuptial agreement crafted by a lawyer. I was required to sign it, declaring that I wouldn't claim anything from Joe in the event of a divorce. I couldn't fathom it. I refused, stating that Joe and I weren't headed for a divorce in the first place. Well, Denise, we'll address that soon. For now, could you do me a favor and sign these papers? Feel free to read them, but it won't benefit you. I can't let you leave without signing. I took the papers from her hand, curious about how she drafted the agreement. As I read through the terms, I was shocked to find that Joe and I couldn't claim anything from each other in case of a divorce. No alimony or asset division. We could only keep what we individually owned. It was absurd, and I felt immediate anger. I asked, "What does this mean, Mary? We never discussed a prenup or postnup. Why did you suddenly introduce this?" Mary explained, "Things have changed over the years. I expected you to inherit $50 million and a prenup seemed unnecessary. Now that it's not happening, I see you as a financial burden. Sign this prenup and I'll find a way to convince Joe to leave you." I realized, so Mary, all these years you avoided the prenup talk to secure Joe and yourselves a share of my inheritance. Now that it's not happening, you want me to relinquish my rights to his assets. How do you plan to persuade Joe to go along with this? Mary responded, "I'll come up with a story or something. I can't let my son marry someone like you. He needs to divorce you and marry someone wealthy so my family can live a life of luxury. I didn't raise him for years to see him marry a financial burden." "What are you talking about? Joe doesn't care if I don't have a huge inheritance," Denise protested. "Well, I care, Denise. I care if you don't have a substantial inheritance. I allowed my son to marry you because I thought you would contribute to a better life for us. Now it seems you'll ruin our lives by relying on my son," I replied, growing furious with Mary's statements. I was relieved that I had revealed there was no inheritance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have discovered how manipulative she was. Now I understand why Joe and Michael are always cautious of Mary. She's incredibly greedy and selfish, showing no regard for her son or daughter-in-law. I doubted Joe even knew about the postnup she wanted me to sign. Ready to express my thoughts, I knew she wouldn't let me leave without signing. To maintain composure, I reluctantly signed the postnup, saying, "I don't want to sign a postnup, Mary. I need to protect myself too. If Joe is in favor of a postnup, we will discuss it with lawyers. I'm not signing whatever you're giving me." Mary insisted, "Listen, Denise, I won't let you leave until you sign these papers. I can do this all day. Michael and Joe won't be back from their fishing trip anytime soon, and I know your boss is calling you to get back to work." Feeling trapped, I finally relented. Give me the key so I can get back to work. Enough is enough. Mary then grabbed my hand forcefully, causing pain, and began screaming about me being a gold-digging witch. My anxiety surged, and I was on edge. With my boss calling persistently, I reluctantly signed as planned. Mary looked satisfied and finally released me. As soon as the door opened, I rushed out, locked myself in a room, and called my boss to explain everything. She, a compassionate lady, was appalled by Mary's actions. I mentioned that I might need some time off to deal with my challenging mother-in-law, and she agreed, telling me to take it. After Mary's physical confrontation, I decided to document the forming bruise with pictures. The more I stared at the mark, the angrier I got. Mary had truly crossed a line today, and I realized I needed to take action to teach her a lesson. Not wanting to disturb Joe and Michael, who were away, I refrained from calling that day and waited for their return. The following day, Joe and his father returned in good spirits. They became suspicious upon seeing Mary and me looking glum, unaware that our moods were due to entirely different reasons. When Joe attempted to inquire about the issue, I asked for some time, and Mary seized the opportunity to call him and discuss the prenup. Within 2 minutes of Mary's call, Joe stormed downstairs, visibly upset. "What the hell are these papers, Dad? Are you involved in this as well?" Confused, his father replied, "What papers? I don't understand. It's a postnup that Mom made for me and my wife. It's ridiculous." Joe, angered, questioned Mary. "What is going on? What will you say, Dad? She's just defending herself." Mary defended herself. "I'm protecting you and us, Joe. This wife of yours is worthless. She'll never help us have a better life. Instead, she'll drain you. She's a gold digger who lied to you about her inheritance." Joe, bewildered, asked, "What are you saying, Mom? What does Denise's inheritance have to do with us?" "Joe, you don't understand. I've encountered women like her. She might harm you and then take all your money in a divorce. You need to sign this postnup and then divorce her when the time is right. Then you can find a better woman who won't leave you absolutely broke." Joe erupted into a fit of rage upon hearing this. He began berating Mary, and even Michael joined in. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Unsure if Joe, being a mama's boy, would take my side, I was surprised to see both him and Michael fighting for me, even though they didn't know the truth about my inheritance. Assuming there was an issue with my inheritance, Joe questioned me after the heated exchange. "Why did you sign the prenup, Denise? You should have waited for me to come and solve this. You knew I would never agree to something like that. Why did you let Mom get away with this?" "I know you wouldn't have asked for a postnup, Joe. I trust you. You've always taken care of me without any conditions. I did want to discuss the postnup with you, but I wasn't allowed to." Mary cornered me and confined me in her room. Then she grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go until I signed the papers. I didn't have a choice. I was forced to give my signature. Stunned, Joe and Michael heard my explanation. What concerned them more was that Mary didn't deny or defend herself. She seemed confident and proud of her actions. Meanwhile, my husband and father-in-law were furious. They looked at me with disbelief until I showed them the marks on my arm. Then both of them confronted Mary. "Mom, what the hell have you done to Denise? How dare you touch my wife? This is assault. You bruised her." "Mary, you've completely lost it. Why on earth did you think this was the right way to act? Why are you both shouting at me?" "I did what I believed was best for my son. I couldn't let that person take advantage of him. Joe, I'm your mother, and I acted with your best interest in my heart. Are you suggesting I harmed my wife for your sake? How can you be so heartless? Just because Denise isn't inheriting money doesn't mean I'll leave her. I didn't marry her for wealth. But you promised us a better life, Mary. You said we'd live comfortably. How can that happen if you don't marry someone affluent? Mary, what's going on with you? Both Joe and Denise take great care of us, so why are you being so greedy? Isn't life good enough for you?" "Well, it seems not. I believe we can do better, but only if Joe marries someone wealthy. With his status and job, he could easily find a rich partner, and just imagine how much better our lives would be." Suddenly, Joe and Michael erupted, yelling at Mary. After a heated argument, Mary realized she was cornered. She understood that Michael and Joe wouldn't support her, so she resorted to manipulation. With tears streaming down her face, she loudly cried out, accusing them of making her the villain. She insisted she was only trying to secure a better life for everyone, emphasizing her entitlement to the house as a marital asset. Responding to her claims, Joe and Michael clarified that they were not freeloading in her house. Denise moved in to take care of everyone, and they were covering all expenses. Frustrated, Michael declared that he and Denise would move out 2 months, withdrawing financial support. Jo, too, expressed her intention to leave, fed up with Mary's greedy behavior and assault on Denise. Even the father considered moving out with them, stating he couldn't be with such a vile woman. Amidst the chaos, Mary belittled Jo, predicting her failure in moving out due to financial struggles. However, Jo, determined to cut ties with Mary, invited their father to join them, expressing her willingness to take care of him. Seizing the opportunity for revenge, Jo confronted Mary. She pointed out the foolishness of Mary's actions and declared that it was time for her to wake up. Before Jo could intervene, Jo prepared to deliver a message that would make Mary realize the consequences of her actions. "I assure you that there's no need to stress about it, Mary. I am fully capable of accommodating all 2 of us without any issues. Denise, don't amuse me. Your job isn't sufficient to support everyone. Without my house, you'd have nowhere to go. You're merely a financially struggling opportunist. That's not accurate. I'm neither broke nor a gold digger. In fact, I'm quite wealthy, holding around $50 million, although not all of it is in cash. What are you saying? You previously claimed there was no inheritance, and now you confess you lied about it. I was simply bored and annoyed by your persistence, Mary, so I jokingly mentioned there was no inheritance. I didn't expect it to provoke such a strong reaction and expose your true intentions. Trust me, Mary, I'm relieved now that I teased you that day." Mary was completely taken aback by my revelation, and even Jo and Michael were somewhat surprised. I could see Mary contemplating her next move, trying to regain my friendship. She awkwardly laughed and exclaimed, "Oh my God, you were joking. You're so silly, Denise. I thought you were serious about not having an inheritance." "That was mischievous of you, Denise. You should have clarified sooner, and we could have avoided all this trouble." "Mary? If I had revealed it was a joke earlier, you wouldn't have made that post, right? You wouldn't have attempted to ruin my marriage. I suppose I got carried away. Denise, I shouldn't have been so harsh. I didn't even give you a chance to explain. That was incredibly rude of me. Look, I've torn up the post. We don't have to worry about it anymore. No, Mary, you no longer need to concern yourself with my inheritance. I have no intention of having any relationship with you again. If Jo is okay with us moving out and cutting ties, count me in." "Oh, Denise, we've made up our minds to leave. Mom's actions have made it clear how greedy she is, and I won't allow her to take advantage of you. We'll be moving out this month, and that's final. Dad will be coming with us." Mary found herself in a difficult situation that day. All 2 of us were determined to leave. Jo and I were already exploring houses and found 3 about an hour away. Within a month, we closed the deal and were ready to move in. Buying a house and relocating within a month is quite straightforward when you have the financial means, and fortunately, we were well off at that time. Following the plan, Michael also decided to move in with us. We intended to support him while he went through the process of divorcing Mary. He had already initiated the divorce proceedings that same month. Despite Mary's efforts to persuade us to stay, pleading for forgiveness and shedding tears over her situation, we stuck to our decision. She did own a house but lacked a source of income. Unable to claim alimony because Michael relied on Jo for financial support, neither Michael nor Mary qualified for alimony. In an ironic twist, Michael ended up with half ownership of Mary's house due to it being acquired during their marriage. This forced Mary to sell the house since she couldn't afford to buy Michael out. It was amusing to witness her lose her inheritance while attempting to claim a share of mine. The divorce process took a year as the judge ordered a separation. Mary faced financial struggles, selling the house quickly to support herself. Despite needing to find a job and earn money, she remained in a tough spot. Once the divorce was finalized and Michael received his share, he moved into a small apartment to respect our privacy. Even though he moved out, we continued to provide financial support because we could.